Taman stood in the massive docking bay of Veltaris Prime Station and tried not to look amazed. He failed. Above him, the ceiling stretched so high it seemed to disappear into artificial clouds. Hundreds of ships came and went through shimmering energy barriers that kept the atmosphere inside while letting vessels pass through. Aliens of every imaginable shape and size walked, crawled, and floated past him. A being made entirely of crystalline structures chimed as it passed. Something that looked like a walking tree nodded at him with what might have been friendliness. A group of tall, blue-skinned aliens with 4 arms laughed together near a food vendor. Taman had studied dozens of species during his preparation for the academy, but seeing them in person was completely different. "Close your mouth, Taman. You look like a tourist," said a familiar voice behind him. He turned to see Hana grinning at him. She carried 2 bags instead of his one, but she looked far more composed than he felt. They had grown up in the same neighborhood in Seoul, attended the same schools, and applied to the Andromeda Military Academy together. Out of 2,000 human applicants, only 15 had been accepted. Somehow they had both made it. "I am a tourist," Taman said. "This is incredible." "It is," Hana agreed, her smile softening. "But we need to get to the Academy shuttle. We're already cutting it close." They hurried through the station, following the glowing signs that pointed toward the Academy transport area. Taman noticed something as they walked. Other beings gave them space, but not the respectful space given to the large armored aliens he assumed were warriors. It was more like the space people gave to children or small animals. Casual dismissal. A massive creature, easily 3 meters tall with gray skin like stone and arms thick as tree trunks, bumped into Taman hard enough to send him stumbling. The alien didn't even look back or apologize. It simply continued walking as if Taman were nothing more than air. "Get used to that," Hana muttered. "We're the new species. Everyone thinks we're weak." "Are we?" Taman asked, rubbing his shoulder where the alien had hit him. "Compared to them? Probably." Hana shrugged. "But we got accepted to the Academy. That has to count for something." The Academy shuttle was smaller than Taman expected, designed to hold only 50 passengers. Most of the seats were already filled with alien cadets. He saw the blue 4-armed species, the stone-skinned giants, beings covered in scales, others with too many eyes or not enough limbs. Every one of them looked capable and confident. He and Hana found seats near the back. Around them, conversations buzzed in dozens of languages. Taman's translator implant worked overtime, feeding him understanding directly into his auditory cortex. It was disorienting at first, hearing alien languages, but understanding them as Korean. "Look at those 2, someone said, not bothering to lower their voice. "Humans. I heard their planet is barely Class 4. How did they even get accepted?" "Charity admissions," another voice answered. "The Union wants to include everyone, even the primitive ones." Taman felt heat rise in his face, but Hana put a hand on his arm. "Ignore them," she whispered. "We'll prove ourselves soon enough." The shuttle detached from the station and began its journey to the Academy's main campus, located on a small moon orbiting Veltaris Prime. Through the window, Taman watched. The planet below, a world of purple oceans and green continents, nothing like Earth but beautiful in its own way. "Attention, cadets," a voice boomed through the shuttle's speakers. "I am Instructor Velmoth, head of combat training at Andromeda Military Academy. You have been selected from millions of applicants across hundreds of worlds. You represent the best your species has to offer." A hologram appeared at the front of the shuttle, showing the speaker. Instructor Velmoth belonged to the stone-skinned species, towering and powerful. His face was angular and severe, with small eyes that glowed a dim red. "But being accepted is not the same as succeeding," Velmoth continued. "Most of you will fail. Most of you will return to your homeworlds within the first year, unable to meet our standards. The galaxy needs warriors, strategists, and leaders. If you cannot become these things, you have no place here." The shuttle fell silent. Even the confident aliens looked nervous now. "We do not lower our standards for anyone," Velmoth said, and his glowing eyes seemed to sweep across the shuttle, landing briefly on Taman and Hana. "Every species is tested equally. If you are weak, you will be discovered. If you are incapable, you will be removed. The Galactic Union has no room for charity cases in its military. The hologram disappeared. Around the shuttle, cadets began talking again, but the conversations were more subdued now. Tae-min noticed several aliens glancing at him and Hana with expressions he couldn't quite read. Pity, maybe, or curiosity about how long the humans would last. The Academy campus was enormous. Multiple buildings spread across the moon's surface, connected by enclosed walkways and transport tubes. Training grounds, weapons ranges, and simulation centers dotted the landscape. In the distance, Tae-min could see what looked like a massive arena, large enough to hold thousands of spectators. Cadets were separated into groups based on their species' environmental needs. Most could breathe the standard atmosphere the Academy provided, but some needed special accommodations. Tae-min watched as a group of aquatic beings were guided toward a facility filled with water. Others who required different gravity levels were taken to specialized sections. He and Hana were placed in the standard environment group, the largest by far. A slim, elegant alien with silver skin and enormous black eyes addressed them. Her name was Instructor Lionella, and she handled cadet orientation. You will be assigned quarters based on compatibility assessments, Lionella explained. Your first week will consist of physical evaluations, academic testing, and psychological profiling. We need to understand your capabilities before we can properly train you. She paused, her large eyes scanning the group. I will be honest with you. The Academy's standards were designed for species that have been part of the Galactic Union for centuries. Some of you come from worlds that only recently achieved space travel. You may find the training difficult or even impossible. This is not a reflection on your worth as individuals or species. It is simply reality. Again, Tae-min felt eyes on him. Humans had achieved faster than light travel only 20 years ago. They were the newest members of the Galactic Union by far. Every other species in the Academy had centuries or even millennia of experience with galactic civilization. The room assignments appeared on their data pads. Tae-min was placed with 3 other cadets in a shared quarters. None of them were human. When he arrived at the room, he found his roommates already there. One was a Vexian, a species covered in overlapping metallic plates that served as natural armor. He introduced himself as Cross and barely acknowledged Tae-min before returning to unpacking his equipment. The second was a Silicarn named Jorvan, one of the elegant, 4-armed blue species Tae-min had seen earlier. Jorvan looked at Tae-min with open curiosity. A human, he said. I have never met one before. Is it true your species still uses physical currency on parts of your world? Some places, yes, Tae-min admitted. We're still transitioning to full digital systems. Jorvan's expression shifted to something like amusement mixed with disbelief. Fascinating. Primitive, but fascinating. The third roommate was another member of the stone-skinned species, though smaller than Instructor Velmoth. His name was Breck, and he simply grunted at Tae-min before claiming the largest sleeping platform in the room. Tae-min took the remaining platform, the smallest one, near the window. As he unpacked his few belongings, he could feel his roommates watching him, assessing him, judging him. That night, lying in an alien bed on an alien moon orbiting an alien planet, Tae-min stared out the window at the stars. Earth was out there somewhere, impossibly far away. He thought about his family, his friends, everyone he had left behind to come here. This was a mistake, Cross said suddenly in the darkness. Humans are too weak for military service. You will not last a month. Tae-min didn't respond. He had heard similar things during the entire journey to the Academy. Maybe they were right. Maybe humans were too weak, too primitive, too new to the galaxy. But he was here now, and he was going to prove something, even if he didn't know what yet. Tomorrow the real testing would begin. The first week at the Academy passed in a blur of tests and evaluations. Tae-min quickly learned that he was indeed weaker than most other species, at least by the Academy's measurements. The strength tests were humiliating. While Cross could lift weights that would crush a small vehicle, Tae-min struggled with loads that the testing equipment labeled as Minimal resistance. The speed tests were no better. A species called the Rolth moved so fast they appeared as blurs. Taemin's running time was marked in the bottom 20th percentile. Even his reaction time, which he had always considered good, was average at best compared to beings with nervous systems evolved for pursuit or escape. "Do not be discouraged," Instructor Lirnella told him after reviewing his results. "Physical capability is only one aspect of military service. Strategy, leadership, and adaptability matter as much as strength." But Taemin could see the doubt in her enormous eyes. She was being kind, the way adults were kind to children who tried their best but came up short. Hana's results were similar. They met for meals in the massive cafeteria, where hundreds of species ate foods appropriate to their biology. The cafeteria systems could produce nearly anything, but Taemin stuck to simple foods that reminded him of home. Rice, vegetables, some protein, comfort, and familiarity. "I got bottom marks in everything physical," Hana said, pushing her food around her plate. "The academic tests were fine, but apparently that doesn't matter much in the first year. Everything is about physical performance. Maybe we should transfer to the diplomatic corps," Taemin suggested, only half joking. "I hear they don't care if you can lift heavy objects." Before Hana could answer, an announcement echoed through the cafeteria. "All first-year cadets report to the Wilderness Training Dome for survival assessment. This is a mandatory evaluation. Repeat, all first-year cadets to the Wilderness Dome immediately." The cafeteria emptied quickly as cadets rushed to comply. Taemin and Hana followed the crowd to one of the Academy's largest facilities, a massive dome that could simulate almost any environment in the known galaxy. Instructor Velmoth stood at the entrance, looking even more imposing in full tactical gear. Behind him, the dome's interior showed a dense jungle landscape with strange purple vegetation and a sky that flickered with lightning. "This is your wilderness survival assessment," Velmoth announced. "You will be dropped into the simulation at random points. Your objective is to reach the extraction point 50 kilometers from your starting position. You have 48 hours to complete the course." A holographic map appeared showing the terrain. It looked brutal. Mountains, rivers, dense forest, and areas marked as extreme hazard zones. "The environment is modeled after Krathnor, a Class 7 world in the disputed territories," Velmoth continued. "The temperature ranges from freezing at night to extreme heat during the day. The air contains trace toxins. The local fauna is aggressive and designed to test your combat reflexes. The flora includes several species that can cause paralysis or death if touched." Murmurs ran through the assembled cadets. A Class 7 world was considered highly dangerous. Most inhabited worlds were Class 3 or 4. "You may use any equipment you can carry," Velmoth said. "Environmental suits, weapons, survival gear. Choose wisely. Heavy equipment will slow you down. Too little equipment may leave you unprepared." Cadets rushed to the equipment lockers. Taemin watched as most selected full environmental suits with built-in air filtration and temperature regulation. Many took weapons designed for hunting dangerous predators. The stone-skinned cadets like Cross needed less equipment due to their natural armor. But even they took breathing apparatus to handle the toxic air. "What do we take?" Hana asked Taemin. He thought about it. The environmental suits were heavy and would slow them down, but the alternative was facing toxic air and extreme temperatures with minimal protection. "Standard tactical uniform," Taemin decided. "Basic survival knife, water purification tablets, emergency shelter. Light and fast, are you sure?" "That air is toxic." The briefing said trace toxins. My translator implant defined trace as less than 3% contamination. Earth's air during the Industrial Revolution had worse pollution in some cities. We studied it in history class. Hana looked uncertain but followed his lead. They geared up with minimal equipment while other cadets suited up in full protective gear. Instructor Velmoth noticed them and walked over. "Cadets, are you certain about your equipment choices? This environment is hostile to most life forms." "We're sure, sir," Taemin said. Velmoth's red eyes studied them for a long moment. "Your choice. But understand that pride is not worth dying for. Even in a simulation, if you cannot handle the environment, activate your emergency beacon immediately. We will extract you, though it will result in a failed evaluation." "Understood, sir." The cadets were loaded into transport pods and scattered across the simulation zone. Taemin felt his stomach drop as the pod shot through the air and then released him over the jungle canopy. He dropped through the strange purple leaves and hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Around him, the jungle was alive with sounds. Buzzing insects, distant roars, the rustle of things moving through the undergrowth. The air was humid and had a bitter chemical taste. Not pleasant, but not unbearable. Taman checked his map. The extraction point was 50 kilometers northeast. He had 48 hours. That meant maintaining a pace of just over 1 kilometer per hour, which left time for rest and navigation around obstacles. He started walking. The first hour was difficult as he adjusted to the environment. The temperature was hot, probably around 35 degrees Celsius. Uncomfortable but manageable. The air made his eyes water slightly, but his lungs adapted quickly. What surprised him was how familiar it felt. Not the alien plants or the strange sky, but the act of moving through hostile terrain. Humanity had been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. Persistence hunting across African savannas, trekking through frozen tundra, surviving in deserts and rainforests and mountains. This was just another landscape to cross. Night fell with shocking speed. The temperature plummeted and Taman could see his breath. He set up his emergency shelter, a thin thermal blanket that reflected body heat. It wasn't much, but combined with some basic exercises to maintain his core temperature, he stayed warm enough. In the morning, he continued. The second day brought new challenges. He encountered one of the simulated predators, a creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a spider. It was fast and aggressive, but Taman had been warned. He used his knife to defend himself, targeting joints and eyes like the combat training had taught him. The creature was a hologram with force feedback, but the training was real. He took a cut across his arm, shallow but painful. He cleaned and bandaged it without stopping. Around the 30-hour mark, Taman started encountering other cadets. Most were moving slowly, weighed down by their equipment. Some had already activated their emergency beacons and were waiting for extraction. He saw Jorvan sitting against a tree, his elegant blue face looking exhausted. "How are you still moving?" Jorvan called out as Taman passed. "The air is toxic." "It's not that bad," Taman said, which was true. His lungs burned a little, but nothing worse than a hard day of running back on Earth. He found Hana at the 40-hour mark. She had taken a different route but was making good time. Together they pushed toward the extraction point. They arrived with 3 hours to spare. Several other cadets were already there. Mostly the strongest species like the stone-skinned cadets and the armored Vexians, but Taman and Hana were the only ones not wearing environmental protection. Instructor Velmoth was at the extraction point, monitoring arrivals. When he saw them, his expression shifted from surprise to something harder to read. "Cadets, report. How did you manage the toxic atmosphere?" "It wasn't that toxic, sir," Taman said. "Uncomfortable, but our lungs filtered it adequately." "Your lungs filtered it," Velmoth repeated slowly. "And the temperature extremes?" "We adjusted, sir. Stayed warm at night, kept hydrated during the day." More cadets arrived over the next few hours. The final count showed that 70% completed the course. But of those, only the humans had done it without environmental protection. Back at the academy, a medical team insisted on examining Taman and Hana. They ran scans, took blood samples, and checked their vital signs repeatedly. "This doesn't make sense," one of the medics, a Silicarn female, muttered. "Your cells should show damage from the toxins. But there's nothing. Just normal metabolic waste, and is that bad?" Hana asked. "It's impossible, or it should be." The medic looked at them with what might have been concern. "What kind of world did you evolve on?" "Earth," Taman said. Just Earth, but something had changed. He could see it in how the other cadets looked at him now. Not with dismissal or pity anymore. Now there was curiosity and maybe the first hint of something else. Uncertainty. Word spread quickly through the academy about the human cadet's performance in the wilderness assessment. Taman found himself the subject of stares and whispered conversations. Some cadets avoided him. Others approached with questions he didn't know how to answer. "Is it true you breathe the toxic air with no protection?" A small insectoid cadet asked him in the hallway. "Yes, but it wasn't that toxic," Taman tried to explain. The insectoid cadet's translator struggled with the clicking sound she made, but the meaning came through clearly. "That air would have damaged my respiratory system in minutes." "How is this possible?" Taman didn't have a good answer. He had just done what felt natural. 3 days after the wilderness assessment, Hana received an unexpected message. Professor Krindar, who taught xenobiology, wanted her to give a presentation about Earth and human evolution to his advanced class. Hana was nervous but also excited. Finally, a chance to show that humans had something valuable to offer beyond just surviving difficult environments. Taimin sat in the back of the lecture hall when Hana gave her presentation. The room was packed with students from a dozen different species, all curious about the newcomers who had performed so unexpectedly well. Hana started with basics. She projected an image of Earth, a blue and green marble hanging in space. "This is our homeworld," she began. According to the initial galactic survey, Earth was classified as a Class 4 garden world. Moderate climate, stable tectonics, abundant water and vegetation, a pleasant world suitable for life. The students nodded. This matched what they had learned. But that classification was incorrect, Hana continued, and the room went quiet. Earth is not a Class 4 world. Recent re-evaluation suggests it should be classified as Class 9. Shocked murmurs filled the hall. Class 9 worlds were death worlds, places where survival required constant adaptation and extreme resilience. Professor Krindar, a floating being composed of gas held together by a containment field, interrupted. "Cadet Hana, that is a significant claim. What evidence supports this reclassification?" "Several factors, Professor. Let me start with gravity." Hana brought up a comparison chart. Standard galactic gravity, the level maintained on most space stations and ships, is calculated based on the average of inhabited worlds. Earth's gravity is 1.8 times the standard. The number appeared on the screen. Students stared at it in disbelief. "Wait," someone called out. "You mean humans have been living under almost double gravity their entire lives?" "Yes," Hana said simply. "To us it's normal. We evolved under those conditions. But it means that here at the Academy with standard gravity, we're essentially training with weighted restraints removed." Taimin thought about all the strength tests he had failed. Suddenly they made more sense. He wasn't weak by human standards. He was weak by galactic standards, which were calculated for beings who evolved under much lighter gravity. "Let's talk about Earth's atmosphere next," Hana continued. "Oxygen comprises 21% of our air. But during our industrial age, before we developed clean technology, humans lived in cities where the air was filled with pollutants, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, particulate matter. Children grew up breathing air that would be classified as toxic by galactic standards. But that must have caused widespread death," Professor Krindar said. "It did reduce life expectancy," Hana admitted, "but not as much as you might think. Human bodies adapted. Our lungs developed to filter contaminants. Our immune systems learned to handle constant irritation and damage. We evolved in an environment that was already trying to kill us, so we became very good at not dying." She pulled up another image, this one showing various Earth predators: lions, tigers, bears, sharks, crocodiles, wolves, and dozens of others. "Earth has thousands of apex predator species," Hana said. "Humans are not the strongest, fastest, or most dangerous animal on our world. We survive not by being the best predator, but by outlasting everything else." "Outlasting?" a student asked. "Persistence hunting," Hana explained. Early humans hunted by chasing prey for hours or even days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Humans can run for longer distances than almost any other Earth species. Our bodies are designed for endurance, not speed or strength. She showed footage of a human marathon, runners covering 42 kilometers without stopping. The alien students watched in disturbed silence. "Our cardiovascular system is incredibly efficient," Hana continued. "Our bodies can cool themselves through sweating, which allows us to maintain activity and heat that would force other species to rest. We can carry water and food supplies, plan ahead, and adapt our strategies. Prey animals could run faster, but they couldn't run forever. Humans just had to keep going." The room was completely silent now. Taimin could see Professor Krindar's energy field pulsing in what might have been agitation or fascination. "Let's discuss Earth's biodiversity of diseases," Hana said, her tone becoming almost apologetic. "Earth is home to millions of bacterial and viral species. Humans are constantly at war with microscopic organisms trying to invade our bodies. Our immune systems are among the most aggressive and adaptable in the known galaxy." She displayed data comparing human immune responses to those of other species. The differences were shocking. A common human cold caused by a rhinovirus could be lethal to many species in this room, Hana said quietly. "Not because the virus is particularly aggressive, but because your immune systems have never encountered anything like Earth's microbial diversity." Human children are exposed to thousands of potential pathogens before they reach adulthood. Our bodies learn to fight and kill microscopic invaders as a basic function. A Silicarn student raised one of her 4 hands. Are you saying humans are walking biological hazards? We undergo decontamination procedures before interacting with other species, Hannah assured them. But yes, humans carry antibodies and immunity to diseases that most species have never encountered. Our bodies are constantly fighting battles you don't even know exist. She moved to the next topic, and Taman could see several students looking uncomfortable. Humans regularly consume substances that are toxic to most life forms, purely for enjoyment, Hannah said. She listed them: caffeine, alcohol, capsaicin from hot peppers, theobromine from chocolate. Each one brought new expressions of shock. Capsaicin is a neurotoxin that causes pain receptors to fire, Hannah explained. Many humans eat it deliberately because they enjoy the sensation. We call it spicy food. You eat neurotoxins for pleasure? Someone asked, sounding horrified. Yes. And we drink ethanol, which is toxic to our liver because it produces a pleasant mental state. And we consume caffeine, a stimulant that increases heart rate and alertness every morning to help us wake up. Professor Krindar floated closer to the display. What about your healing capabilities? The medical staff noted that you and Cadet Taemin showed accelerated tissue repair after the wilderness assessment. Human cellular regeneration is quite fast compared to galactic averages, Hannah confirmed. Minor cuts and bruises heal within days without medical intervention. Broken bones can mend in weeks. Our bodies are designed to repair damage quickly because on Earth injuries were common and medical care was not always available. She showed a comparison of healing rates. Humans recovered from injuries 2 to 3 times faster than the galactic average. There's one more thing I should mention, Hannah said, hesitating. Humans evolved as pack hunters and social creatures. We form deep emotional bonds not just with each other, but with other species. On Earth, we domesticated wolves, turning them into dogs that live in our homes as family members. We kept cats despite them being predators. We formed partnerships with horses, birds, and dozens of other species. This pack bonding extends to almost anything, she continued. Humans will form emotional attachments to robots, vehicles, plants, even inanimate objects. We name our ships, talk to our tools, and mourn when possessions are lost. This ability to bond across species lines made us successful on Earth. We didn't have to be the strongest predator. We made alliances with other predators. The lecture hall was completely silent. Professor Krindar's energy field had dimmed considerably. So to summarize, Hannah said, humans evolved on a high-gravity world with a toxic atmosphere, surrounded by thousands of apex predators and millions of deadly microorganisms. We survived not through strength or speed, but through endurance, adaptability, and cooperation. Every human in this academy has been training under nearly double gravity their entire lives. We can breathe air that would poison most of you. We heal from injuries faster than average, and we form emotional bonds that make us loyal and protective of those we consider pack members. She paused, looking around the room. Earth didn't make us strong. It made us survivors. The class ended in stunned silence. As students filed out, Taemin heard fragments of conversation. No wonder they completed the wilderness course, double gravity this whole time. Should humans even be classified as a civilian species? Taemin met Hannah outside the lecture hall. She looked exhausted but also relieved. That went well, I think, she said. You scared them, Taemin replied. Good. Maybe now they'll stop treating us like we're fragile. But as they walked back to their quarters, Taemin realized something. The mandatory combat assessment was scheduled for the end of the second month. Every cadet had to face it, and everyone was nervous. Even the confident species like the stone-skinned cadets and the armored Vexians prepared seriously. The assessment took place in the combat dome, a massive facility that could simulate any combat scenario imaginable. The dome used hard-light holograms combined with force feedback fields to create opponents that looked, moved, and hit like real threats. The pain was real, though safety protocols prevented actual death or permanent injury. Instructor Velmoth explained the rules to the assembled cadets. You will enter the dome alone. The virtual intelligence will generate opponents based on your species' capabilities. The scenario will escalate until you are overwhelmed and either surrender or are incapacitated. Your performance will be measured by time survived, opponents defeated, and tactical decision-making. He paused, his red eyes scanning the crowd. The Academy record is 43 minutes held by a Korthun warrior caste cadet from 20 years ago. Most cadets survive between 15 and 25 minutes. Anything below 10 minutes is considered failing. The assessments were conducted in order of species strength, from strongest to weakest. This meant humans would go near the end. Taimin watched on monitors as other cadets faced their trials. Cross, his Vexian roommate, lasted 22 minutes against increasingly powerful opponents. His natural armor protected him well, but eventually the VI generated enough enemies to overwhelm even his defenses. Jorvan, the elegant Silicarn, used his 4 arms to wield multiple weapons simultaneously. He was fast and graceful, dancing through combat with practiced skill. 28 minutes before the simulation brought him down. Breck, the stone-skinned cadet, simply muscled through his opponents with raw strength. 31 minutes. Impressive, and he left the dome with a satisfied grunt. Then it was Taimin's turn. He walked into the dome, which currently showed a neutral gray environment. In his hands, he held a standard training weapon, a rifle that fired non-lethal energy rounds. A knife was strapped to his thigh. Cadet Taimin, human. The VI announced in a neutral voice. Initiating combat assessment. Calibrating difficulty based on species parameters. The environment shifted, becoming a ruined cityscape. Taimin took cover behind a collapsed wall just as the first opponents appeared. 3 humanoid shapes armed with rifles. Standard infantry tactics he fired, taking down 2 before they could reach good cover. The third got off several shots that hit the wall near his head. Taimin moved, circling around through the rubble. He came up behind the third opponent and put 2 rounds into its back. Wave 1 complete, the VI announced. Escalating difficulty. More opponents appeared, 5 this time, with better positioning. Taimin engaged, using cover and movement to avoid their fire. He took a hit on his shoulder that sent pain lancing through his arm, but he kept moving. 4 down, but the 5th managed to close to melee range. Taimin dropped his rifle and drew his knife. The opponent was a hologram, but the force feedback made it feel solid when he dodged its strike and countered with a slash across its midsection. It dissolved. Wave 2 complete. Cadet shows adequate performance. Escalating difficulty. The next wave had 7 opponents with better weapons and tactical coordination. Taimin's heart rate increased, but his breathing stayed controlled. He could feel adrenaline flooding his system, sharpening his focus. This was what human bodies were designed for. Not the strongest or fastest, but able to maintain high performance under stress for extended periods. He fought, wave after wave. The VI kept escalating, seeming confused by his performance. According to its calculations based on human parameters, Taimin should have been overwhelmed by now. Outside the dome, a crowd had gathered to watch on the monitors. This was unusual. Most cadets watched only their friends' assessments, but word had spread about the human cadet, and curiosity drew a crowd. Hana stood at the front, watching Taimin's vital signs on a secondary display. His heart rate was elevated but steady. His breathing was controlled. Most concerning to the alien observers, his body was producing massive amounts of adrenaline and endorphins, natural chemicals that suppressed pain and enhanced performance. He's been going for 30 minutes, someone said. The VI should have overwhelmed him by now. Instructor Velmoth stood with arms crossed, watching intently. The VI is confused. It keeps escalating because the human is not behaving according to expected parameters. What do you mean? Asked Professor Krindar, who had floated over to observe. Watch his movement patterns, Velmoth said. He is learning the VI's tactics in real time. Humans are pattern recognition specialists. Every encounter teaches him something and he adapts. Inside the dome, Taimin faced his 14th wave. He had lost count of how many opponents he had defeated. His left arm was nearly useless from a hit he had taken 3 waves ago, and pain radiated from his ribs where another strike had landed. But his body's natural painkillers were working, dulling the sensations to manageable levels. He was tired, but not exhausted. His endurance training, lifelong adaptation to high gravity, and evolutionary heritage kept him moving when other species would have collapsed. The opponents were more sophisticated now. They worked in teams, covered each other, and used advanced tactics. Taimin adjusted his strategy, becoming more defensive, using the environment more creatively. 40 minutes, someone in the observation area said. He's approaching the Academy record. Impossible, Breck muttered. Humans are weak. The test proved it. The test measured the wrong things, Hana said quietly. Humans aren't strong. We're relentless. At 43 minutes, Taemin passed the Academy record. The VI, reaching the limits of its normal protocols, began generating more and more opponents. The scenario became absurd, with dozens of enemies closing in from all directions. Taemin finally went down under the combined assault, taking hits from multiple angles that the force feedback translated into overwhelming pain. He collapsed and the simulation ended. Silence filled the observation area. 46 minutes. 3 minutes past the 20-year-old record, set by a species literally bred for warfare. Medical staff rushed into the dome to check on Taemin. He was conscious but dazed, his body shaking from adrenaline crash. They helped him to the medical bay where scanners assessed his condition. Multiple contusions, one cracked rib, extensive muscle strain, a medic reported, but nothing serious. He should be fully recovered in 3 to 5 days. 3 to 5 days? Velmoth repeated. That level of damage should require 2 weeks of recovery for most species. Human healing rates are accelerated, the medic confirmed, consulting Hana's recent lecture notes. Their cellular regeneration is remarkably efficient. Later in the medical bay, Taemin lay on a bed while his body processed the trauma. Hana sat beside him, along with several other human cadets who had come to check on him. You broke the Academy record, Hana said, smiling. That's going to make some species very uncomfortable. I just did what I was trained to do, Taemin said, his voice rough. It wasn't anything special, but it was special and everyone knew it. The combat assessment results spread through the Academy like wildfire. Analysis of Taemin's performance revealed several disturbing facts. His reaction time, while average by galactic standards during normal conditions, had increased significantly during combat. Stress enhanced human performance rather than degrading it. His tactical learning rate was exceptional. The VI's difficulty curve was designed to eventually overwhelm any cadet, but Taemin had adapted faster than the VI could escalate. Most disturbing to many observers was his pain tolerance. He had continued fighting effectively even after taking injuries that would have incapacitated most species. His body's natural combat drugs had kept him functional far past the point where others would have surrendered. An official inquiry was launched, not as punishment but as scientific investigation. The Galactic Union needed to understand what humans actually were. That night, Taemin's roommates treated him differently. Cross, who had barely acknowledged his existence before, now nodded respectfully when they passed each other. Yorvan asked detailed questions about human combat training. Even Breck grunted what might have been approval, but in the halls Taemin heard whispered conversations that made him uncomfortable. If one human can do that, what could an army of them do? They hide their capabilities. First the wilderness assessment, now this. Are they pretending to be weak? Is this some kind of strategy? Taemin didn't feel like he had been hiding anything. He was just being himself, doing what came naturally, but he was beginning to understand that what was natural for humans was extraordinary to everyone else. And that realization scared him more than any combat simulation ever could. The Academy Commandant called a special meeting 3 days after Taemin's record-breaking combat assessment. Commandant Vexthul was an ancient being from a species called the Eternals, creatures that lived for thousands of years and accumulated wisdom to match their longevity. His form was vaguely humanoid but seemed to shift slightly when looked at directly, as if he existed partially in dimensions humans couldn't fully perceive. Taemin stood in the Commandant's office along with Hana and the other human cadets. Instructor Velmoth was present, as was Professor Krindar and several other faculty members. The room felt too small for all the attention focused on the humans. "Cadets, you are not in trouble," Vexthul said, his voice resonating with harmonics that the translator struggled to process. "But the Academy and the Galactic Union needs to understand what humanity truly is. Your recent performances have raised questions that require answers." "What kind of questions, sir?" Taemin asked. "Fundamental ones. When humanity applied for Union membership 20 years ago, Earth was surveyed and classified as a Class 4 garden world. Your species was assessed as technologically developing but physically unremarkable. These assessments appear to have been significantly incorrect. Vexthul activated a holographic display showing Earth from orbit. We have dispatched a new survey team to your homeworld. Their preliminary reports are concerning." The display zoomed in, showing various Earth environments. deserts where the temperature exceeded 50 degrees Celsius, frozen wastelands at -40 degrees, dense jungles teeming with life, deep oceans under crushing pressure, mountain peaks where the air was too thin for most species to breathe. Earth is not a Class 4 world, Vexthal said quietly. Initial reclassification suggests Class 9, a death world. Shocked murmurs filled the room. Even the human cadets looked surprised. They knew Earth was their home, but they had never considered it might be classified as one of the most hostile environments in the galaxy. Class 9 worlds are typically uninhabited or home to extremely specialized species. Professor Krindar explained, his gaseous form pulsing rapidly. They are planets where survival requires constant adaptation and extreme resilience. Most Union species could not survive on a Class 9 world without extensive technological support. But humans evolved there, Velmoth added, his tone making it unclear if this was admiration or concern. Vexthal brought up more data. The survey team has documented over 12,000 apex predator species on Earth. Thousands more species are venomous or poisonous. The microbial diversity is staggering, with millions of bacterial and viral species in constant competition and evolution. Images appeared showing lions, sharks, bears, snakes, spiders, and dozens of other creatures that made the alien observers recoil. And humans are not even the dominant predator on their world, Vexthal continued. They survived through a combination of endurance, intelligence, and social cooperation that is nearly unique in the galaxy. He looked directly at Taimin. Cadet, can you explain pursuit hunting to those present who may not have heard Cadet Hana's lecture? Taimin shifted uncomfortably. It's simple, sir. Early humans hunted by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. It could take hours or even days, but humans could keep going when the prey couldn't. You hunted by exhausting your prey, Velmoth said slowly, like a predator that simply never stops coming. I suppose so, sir. It was effective. The room fell silent. To humans, it was just history. To everyone else, it painted a picture of a species with horrifying persistence. Vexthal activated another display. The survey team also discovered something interesting about human evolutionary history. Your species nearly went extinct multiple times. A timeline appeared showing various catastrophic events, massive volcanic eruptions that blocked the sun and caused global cooling, ice ages that covered much of the planet, rapid climate shifts that destroyed ecosystems. Each time human populations crashed to dangerously low levels. Each time your ancestors survived and adapted. That's not special, sir, Hana said. Many species survived extinction events. True, but most species survived by hiding, by finding stable refuges and waiting out the catastrophe. Humans survive by adapting and expanding, by moving into new environments and learning to survive there. When the climate in one region became uninhabitable, humans moved to different regions and thrived. Professor Krindar added more data. We have also been studying human domestication practices. Your species has domesticated more animals than any other known species. Dogs, cats, horses, cattle, chickens, and dozens more. You formed partnerships with species that should have been predators or competitors. We call it pack bonding. One of the other human cadets, a young woman named Sora, said, It's just how we are. We form connections. You form connections with everything, Krindar said, and his tone held wonder. We found records of humans naming their vehicles, talking to their plants, mourning the loss of inanimate objects. Your capacity for emotional attachment crosses species boundaries in ways we have never observed before. Velmoth spoke up. This pack bonding makes humans exceptionally loyal. Once they consider someone part of their pack, they will endure significant hardship to protect them. This was demonstrated in the wilderness assessment when several human cadets deliberately slowed their own progress to help struggling members of other species. Taimin remembered that. He had stopped to help a small insectoid cadet who had been injured. Even though it cost him time, it had just seemed like the right thing to do. Let me summarize what we know, Vexthal said, his form seeming to solidify as he focused on the humans. Your species evolved on a Class 9 death world under high gravity and toxic atmospheric conditions. You survived by outlasting predators and adapting to catastrophic environmental changes. Your bodies are designed for endurance rather than strength or speed. You heal quickly from injuries. You can consume toxins for pleasure. Your immune systems are hyper-aggressive, and you form deep emotional bonds that make you fiercely protective of those you consider allies. He paused. Do you understand why this concerns the Galactic Union? Taman felt his throat go dry. You think we're dangerous? I think you are unknown, Vexthul corrected. And the unknown is always dangerous. Humanity presented itself as a peaceful, technologically developing species seeking to join the galactic community. Nothing in the initial assessment suggested you were Death World survivors with capabilities far exceeding standard parameters. We didn't hide anything, Hana said firmly. We answered every question truthfully during the application process. If the survey team classified Earth incorrectly, that's not our fault. No, it is not, Vexthul agreed, and that is what troubles me most. You do not consider yourselves exceptional. To humans, your capabilities are normal. This suggests a fundamental disconnect between how humanity sees itself and how the galaxy must now see you. Instructor Velmoth stepped forward. Commandant, what does the Union intend to do with this information? The Council is debating that now, Vexthul said. Some members advocate for restrictions on human expansion and military development. Others believe humanity should be integrated into elite military units. Still others want to study humans more extensively to understand your full capabilities. We're not weapons, Taman said, his voice harder than he intended. We're just people trying to find our place in the galaxy. Are you? Vexthul asked, not unkindly. Cadet Taman, you broke a 20-year academy record set by a warrior caste species literally bred for combat. You did this while your body was operating under pain and injury that would have incapacitated most beings, and according to your own testimony, you were simply doing what came naturally. He let that sink in. If that is natural for humans, what happens when you are pushed beyond your natural limits? What happens when humanity faces a real existential threat, not a training exercise? No one had an answer for that. Vexthul deactivated the displays. You are dismissed, cadets. Return to your training. But understand that your presence here has changed how the galaxy views humanity. Whether that change is for better or worse remains to be seen. As they left the office, Taman felt the weight of those words. He had come to the academy to learn and serve. He had never wanted to be seen as a threat or a curiosity. This is going to get worse before it gets better, Hana said quietly as they walked through the halls. She was right. Over the next week, a scientific paper was published in the Galactic Journal with the title, Humans, a Death World Species, Masquerading as Civilians. The paper went viral across the Union, studied by billions of beings on thousands of worlds. Suddenly, everyone knew about Earth and its terrifying inhabitants who ate poison, hunted by exhaustion, and bonded with predators. The human cadets became celebrities, some famous and some infamous. Taman received interview requests from news organizations across the galaxy. Most wanted to portray humans as either dangerous or fascinating, and he was uncomfortable with both narratives. He just wanted to train, to learn, to prove he belonged at the academy. But the galaxy had other ideas about what humanity was and what it meant for the future, and those ideas were about to be tested in ways no one expected.